they talked a lot this week about the process.
Yeah,
they really did. Yeah,
it was, hey, the process. This, we had a leadership meeting. Terrell Bernard said, and we got to stick to the process. And Mike, you had the stat of the tweet.
Yeah,
that after they've lost 2 games in a row in the last 4 years. And they've always
post that 2-game losing streak, they have won 21 of 23 games over those 4 years.
Wow.
Their only 2 losses were Hail Murray and the overtime game to the Eagles. That's wild.
This is the Buffalo Plus Podcast, brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
All right, hello and welcome to the Buffalo Plus Podcast, presented by Connors and Ferris. Mike Catalana, Dan Fades. I am Jenna Cottrell. Thank you so much for joining us. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We always appreciate it. Gentlemen, a lot to talk about.
Really?
Start the season 3-0. They've lost back-to-back games. They started out hot, and Mike, they've come back down to earth.
Yeah, I mean, the level of competition has gone up too, which has been the case. That first loss was bad against Baltimore. I mean, that Ravens team dominated, I thought, the game. The Bills made a slight comeback and then, threw away any chance. This past week, it was a different kind of game, I thought. They got off to a bad start. They missed a couple of opportunities to score early and got behind. And then they woke up a little bit. And I'm not glass half full because the offense was bad. They had trouble at the end. But, Dan, at least I saw a little more, I shouldn't say more fight, but fight that worked. Yeah. They made plays. And I was really impressed with the defense after that tough start and giving up that big play.
Yeah.
That's encouraging considering they're still not fully healthy, but they're getting there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to hear that Sean McDermott is still coaching a pretty high-level defense without multiple guys that are out or suspended, but I still think that he has done a really good job with a bunch of backups, a rookie at safety. Yeah, they were down, 20-13, still made it a game late to tie it up. Moving past, we've talked about at length about the clock management and the decision at the end of the game, but I still have faith in this defense that is going to end up being a top 10 defense because that's just what Sean McDermott does, no matter who is out there, that there's still going to be a competitive team at the end on that unit.
Yeah, I think they've done a really good job of kind of, especially this last week, like you said, the slower start, and then for them to be able to force some turnovers, which having Terrell Bernard back cannot be understated what that does for this team. The fact that Taron Johnson looks like he's getting closer. Could this be the week that he returns? We said it on our show of how Taron Johnson makes everyone around him better when he is out on the field. You could say that about Terrell Bernard. So obviously it looks like things are moving in terms of that in the direction the Bills want. Ed Oliver, though, he did not practice yet again on Thursday. That, Dan, that kind of scares me. The hamstring injury for him.
Soft tish.
The soft tissue injury.
Never
those can linger.
Yeah. I don't expect to see Ed. I don't know if you guys do. I don't expect to see Ed this week, especially, again, the injury only happened on Thursday of last week. So it wasn't like it happened last Sunday in the game. It flared up. You know what I was thinking? Why doesn't the NFL, why can't you do the IR like baseball can do the injured list? Retroactive.
It would make sense.
Yeah, because in baseball,
you've reported the injury. And then usually for baseball, it's like, well, we'll see how he does over the next 3 days. And then all of a sudden it's, okay, he's not going to be back. And they say, well, he goes on the injured list, but it's retroactive to the time of the injury. You got to give it maybe a little bit of time. Like you should be able to have 5 days, 6 days from the injury to make a decision, because if the guy gets hurt on Saturday at a walkthrough.
Yeah. Happened to Gabe Davis.
Yeah.
That's what went wrong.
But it's true because
I got a Gabe Davis
take.
Yeah. Okay. About a current bill later.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Set up.
Dang.
Dang.
There was something about Ed Oliver I wanted to talk about. Oh, I do think if they were going to put him on IR, though, they would have already done that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So,
but that can linger.
Yes. I got to shrink down. Yes, it can linger. But at the same point, I think if they thought it would be something that needed 4 weeks, then they would have already done that. So I think there's that.
Yeah.
So we'll see. He was at practice in terms of being out there, like with the team, walking around, but he did not participate in any type of drills on the sidelines or anything like that. So when you see that, Mike, it's like, ooh.
Yeah.
Well, Thursday is really like Wednesday practice this week with the game being late.
Monday.
So a lot of times if a guy doesn't practice on Wednesday, it's a veteran day. You're not really too worried.
Or you're still coming off the week before, so
Right.
it's less concern.
So I guess it's a Saturday we'll really get to see, right? Because I think they have a practice tomorrow that is closed to the media, meaning Friday. And then we'll hear from Sean McDermott on Saturday morning for the designations.
Eric Quisimo, I hope I'm saying that right. Do you have a feeling Allen is more hurt than they're saying?
No.
I think he's banged up. I don't think he's hurt.
Yeah, I think he's banged up because at this point in the season, he has taken hits. I feel like he plays every season dealing with some injuries. That being said, I do not think, as the wheel turns out, do they think they covered up a concussion?
Who is they?
There's been a lot of people online that have been saying that is the case. Just to go through the protocol once again. So when Josh went down, he hit his head against the turf. The NFL upstairs will call down, hey, he needs to be evaluated for a concussion. So I was just looking at the video today I had from the Houston game. So Josh gets called into the blue tent. He's in the blue tent with the guy wearing a red hat. That happens to be an independent NFL neurologist. So the NFL neurologist is in there with him, as well as some other trainers. Josh tries to run out of the tent, and they call him back in.
But you don't know what was said at that moment. It's not like he tried to run away from the guy.
She was not in the tent.
No.
I was not in the tent, but
you saw him leave. This same thing happened with McGovern the week before, where they thought he was clear. He may have thought he was cleared.
That's what she was getting to.
I was getting to that. They called him back into the tent,
right?
Because he wasn't official. Yeah, you interrupted me.
No. Oh, I did.
That was a bad interruption.
That was wild.
Yes,
didn't
but
think
I
that
didn't want it to be misinterpreted.
If you would have let me finish my thought,
I guess
what I
that's
would have
true.
said is that Allen tried to run back out in the field, and then they were like, Josh, no, you need to go back into the tent. So Josh went back into the tent once again. Then he was cleared by the NFL neurologist. That's what allowed him to get his helmet and go back out on the field. Now, there are people saying, hey, I saw a cutaway of Josh Allen doing a smelling salt, which Josh Allen and the Bills and every NFL team, like in many sports, they use smelling salts very, very frequently.
Are they ammonia caps?
Ammonia
caps.
Yeah. So Josh, I went back to look because that was a lot of talk on social media was, well, he took smelling salts, like all this stuff. He has a guy on the sidelines that he throws warm-up balls on the sidelines with Mitch Trubisky and those guys before a drive. And then a guy hands him a smelling salts. He walks over to the sidelines and then he goes in. Every single drive, hit or not, the entire. If you were on an NFL sideline after a football game, there's 100 of these little red
capsules. Yeah.
that
are there.
I don't like this because you two who are on the sidelines during a game are adding facts when Joe Schmo at home is seeing something and going, oh, and then they're covering up. I'm like, who is covering it up? Is the NFL covering it up?
So let's not be naive to say the NFL hasn't dropped the ball on some concussion stuff.
Right.
That's for sure. But we have seen, hopefully they have learned from Tua and what has taken place. And then we saw, to your point, in Baltimore, Connor McGovern goes in the tent, comes back out on the field, and he never left the field. Like a play happened, he was clearly shaken up. Like he got his bell rung, like to whatever extent that is. And then the play's about to go on. They stopped the play because an independent neurologist upstairs flagged it. He goes off. There's a commercial timeout. He comes back in. And then before that play, he gets sent back out. So for everybody that thinks that, well, he didn't get cleared, Josh didn't get cleared, right? We have seen the protocol work.
Yeah.
Right.
To that level.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was going to say the question being.
He just interrupted.
I was going to set you up
and then
here.
Interrupted again.
I was going to say the question being, what is said to Josh Allen? I didn't want to make the point that Josh just talked to the doctor and then decided it's time for me to run out of the tent.
Yeah.
I'm saying is someone telling him, because obviously even with Connor McGovern, someone allowed him to leave the tent.
That is correct.
And then he went out. And then all of a sudden there's another person going, hang on a second. We haven't cleared this. Maybe maybe that person in the tent needs to speak to the NFL representative. And that wasn't done yet. I just didn't want it to be conceived as like Josh did a drive-by in the tent and decided I'm going to run on the field.
Yeah, no, that was not the case, because I think the turnover happened and Josh wanted to run back out on the field, but they said, "Hey, you have to come back." They literally were like, "You need to come back." Like, "Josh, you have to go back in the tent," to which he did. I see Sandra L. King saying Sal Capaccio was there and he said there was no concussion. He ran out of the tent onto the turnover and they called him back in. So Sal Capaccio was standing right next to me, because Sal is not the only media member down on the field. He did not say that there was not a concussion. We do not know that. All we know is that Josh Allen went into the tent with an independent neurologist from the NFL. He was then cleared to go back out onto the game. That is why Josh grabbed his helmet. Josh usually does a smelling salt before he runs out on the field. He went and did exactly what we've seen him do many a time. So that is why I think people are saying, "Oh, they didn't follow protocol, or he passed the protocol." That is it.
I have friends
Go
of
ahead,
mine
Michael.
continually
Jenna,
texting me. Continually texting me. He had a concussion. He had a concussion. People saw clips of the video where he hit his head, and then the video stops and Josh is down. But it was pretty quickly after he hit his head that his feet were moving and the doctors were there.
He kind of like did a swim with his feet.
Yeah.
I at first, because I was
on the field.
I was on the field, and at first I thought he got the wind knocked out of him.
Well, that's what Josh apparently was saying when he went to the sideline. He was pointing to his chest.
Yes, because it seemed like he kind of crumpled, which if you've ever gotten the wind knocked out of you, you feel that where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I can't breathe." So there's Eric Quizmo said, "To be clear, I was asking mainly about the hand." Oh my God.
Eric, we just went off on a 5-minute tangent and he's just sitting there like, I didn't mean to do this.
Yes. It started out with, because he has multiple things he's been banged up with.
And he's on the injury report with an ankle, which goes back to the hit he took in Baltimore, where people said he got hit in the head in Baltimore. And Josh said, I rolled my ankle. Like, I got my ankle rolled up on. That's why I was down for a second. So
TR saying the clip looked bad though. Yeah. I think that's totally a fair point.
When you see that clip, he does hit his head. It does look bad.
I think two things can be true.
Not a doctor. Also not in the tent. Not an independent neurologist. Just want to get those out there.
Can you imagine that? Neurologist stand.
You'd have to learn how to read if you're going to do that.
Wow.
Not wrong.
Okay, watch the Buffalo Plus video.
Yeah, not wrong. I do think, I imagine, everybody's brains are different.
Yeah.
That's fair to say?
Yeah.
If another player may take that hit, they could be more susceptible to concussions.
Tua.
Yeah.
We've seen it.
That may have put Tua out for his career if he took a hit like that.
Yeah.
Josh may be, I'm not talking about he's built different and tougher. That's not what I'm saying, is that everybody's head injuries are different. And maybe that kind of a hit, Josh, he's fine. And I'm not trying to be like naive, like, oh, the NFL cares about player safety, because I think they fumble that 90% of the time. But I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist and think that just because somebody says that he looked like he got a concussion, I'm not going to sit there and say, well, he has a concussion then, because somebody on Twitter is a doctor that says this is a head injury.
Yeah. No, I get it. Let's talk about some of the other injuries, because Khalil Shakir, we were at practice this week. He did not practice on Thursday, but we saw him out kind of, how would you describe it? Out on the sideline, kind of jogging around, doing some cuts. I thought it was a good sign, encouraging of like, okay, this looks like someone that's getting ready to go back to practice.
To use a Sean McDermott line, he is improving. You know, he seems to be.
Is that a Sean McDermott line?
He says improving, and then he says it's still day to day. We're going to take it one day at a time. Or Sean likes to say trending in the right direction.
You're progressing.
So that's where I think Khalil is. We disagree. I think he plays this week.
Oh, I hope he plays. I just think he looked, Jenna, even in the game when he got hurt, it was in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
On the sidelines, you know.
He's unsure.
Unsure of it. I still think it feels that way. Some people believe that it's a high ankle, it's an ankle sprain, and those can tend to take a little longer. He needs to be, look, he is a valuable player to this team, but if he's not healthy and he's not confident in that, and he really goes all out, then you could have a bigger issue for it. While you really want him back for this week, because we saw what it looked like without him, you can't push it any farther than it's not pain tolerance for him. I think it's more, can he have protection and be able to run the routes that
and
he
be
needs
effective.
to run? Be effective, yeah.
James Cook's the other one too that popped up after the game. I think we've seen the clip on that catch. Kind of bangs his toe hard into the turf. He pops up with what is a turf toe, foot injury.
Yeah.
That's something that can linger. We talked about in the sports office. Want to get your takes, Jenna? Who's more important? If one of those guys, if you got to pick one of those guys to play, if it's James Cook or Khalil Shakir, who do you think the Bills need out there more?
Wow. That's a hard question because I think you saw what the Bills offense weapon-wise looked like without Khalil Shakir, and the receivers just could not separate. They really, really struggled against Houston to the point where my dad was watching the game. He's like, they can't get open. They can't even help out Josh. Ben. Yeah. 9 for 30.
Dan has a take on this.
It's a correct take.
Go ahead.
James Cook.
Go ahead.
No, I'm fine with Cook being out because I think the guys behind him in Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, I have more confidence in that they can be effective than the guys behind Khalil Shakir, as we saw. They're not effective. I'll take my chances. You can run on the Jets defense a little bit. I still think that while I'd rather have James Cook out there, if I had to pick one, I don't know how this offense functions without Khalil Shakir. We saw it in a game. It wasn't good. So more important guy to have out there is Khalil.
I'm with you on that. I don't know who's your dependable wide receiver.
MVS.
Oh
that was
my
a
gosh.
joke. That was a joke.
Yeah.
Well, Curtis Samuel.
I mean, honestly, Matt Collins is
cool.
Interesting.
I mean, I got to say, yeah, he's a cool guy and everything. He should be the 5th wide receiver on this team.
He's this year's Trent Sherfield.
No, I think he's more
playing
than
a
that.
Gabe Davis role on this team.
Yeah.
I have a guy playing a Gabe Davis role.
Curtis Samuel.
Nope.
Curtis Samuel's doing nothing.
You have to do something.
You
have to do something to become a Gabe Davis role.
Is it a pass catcher or a receiver?
It's somebody on defense.
Oh.
And Keon, I mean, somebody was giving Keon a hard. I mean, on that play.
I'm trying to think about it. It's a Gabe Davis. Oh, you say Greg? Damn.
Oh. Do you want to just go ahead with it?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just on the podcast with Bob Myers from Built in Buffalo, and he said about without Ed, who needs to step up on the defensive line? And I said anybody. And I go, I don't know if Greg Rousseau has played the last 3 games. I just haven't seen it. And he goes, is he like a Gabe Davis type? And I went, wow, I never thought of that. And that's something I will not be able to get out of my head now. Wow. 3 sacks in week 1 has been non-existent since. A guy they invested money into, a guy they picked up their 5th-year option for, but has lacked consistency throughout his career in his time in Buffalo. And
I would argue he hasn't lacked consistency.
That's what I would say about Gabe Davis.
Yeah.
He's been consistent.
Yeah.
At being non-existent.
That makes me sad because I really like Greg. But you're right. 3 sacks week 1. You're like, oh, dang, coming out of the gate. This is his breakout season.
Oh, sorry. It was Dave Meyer. Sorry. When Dave said that from the Built in Buffalo, I was like, I'm going to take that and use that in our podcast. He said, just give me a shout out. It's Dave Meyer from Built in Buffalo.
Roy Collins said, did Dan say Bob Myers?
Yep. Bob Myers is the former Golden State Warriors GM.
Dave Myers.
Dave Myers. Yep, I corrected. Sorry.
Okay. In terms of the defensive line, though, now you're playing without Ed Oliver, Von Miller suspended. So none of that has helped. More attention, too, goes to whoever else is there. But I am with you. Rousseau needs to be. You're paying him, getting him in the 5th-year option. He's going to make a lot more money. And you are committing to this player. When you do that, you're committing that you believe he can be a cornerstone guy. I think when you say that, because he's a 1st-round draft pick. I mean, Kyer Elam is not getting his 5th-year option.
Correct.
Unless something drastically changed.
Yeah.
But they did it with Ed. They did it with Dion. They did it with, or not Dion, I'm sorry, with the other 1st-round pick. So.
And I understand not having Ed and not having Von hurt you as a unit. Okay.
Right.
But is Greg Rousseau just going to be a rotational defensive end on 3rd down?
Well, if that's the case, then
he's
got to
be better in the rush. And he got pushed around in Baltimore. and he was non-existent in Houston. And it's not like Houston has a great offensive line. The Jets' offensive line is not good. Changing their coach is not going to solve their offensive line issues. They have a 41-year-old quarterback who cannot move. If Greg Rousseau doesn't show out, I'm really starting to have concerns if he doesn't do something on Monday night, because now we're having a larger sample size that Greg Rousseau is turning into an AJ Epinesa, where you're like, if he leaves, oh well. If they keep him, it'd be okay on a good price.
Whew, that is true. All right, two things I want to get to. So real quick, Colleen Andrews saying, I heard that Coleman was in a non-contact jersey in practice. Now, Mac Hollins was wearing a non-contact jersey in practice. So just so people are aware.
Shoulder.
Yes, it's not Keon Coleman. And then Ed Oglesby asked a great question. Who is the biggest surprise player, either positively or negatively, so far this year? Daniel.
Biggest disappointment. Biggest surprise negatively is Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anybody that's been more disappointing this year to a team that, credit to me, I was cautious about what I thought he could be this year. And everybody said, we don't need Stephon Diggs because we have a number one guy, and it's going to be Dalton Kincaid. And if you take his stats and you know, put it out over the years, he'll have 100 catches and 1,000 yards. He is nowhere close to that. And I was banging the drum of being cautious about being a tight end that catches 1,000 yards. Even in today's modern pass-happy NFL, where tight ends have become such big pass catchers in offenses, it's rare. Over the last 10 years, there's only been 23 of them, and 9 of them are by a guy named Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
And to be a focal point of an offense, the passing offense, and to be a tight end, you need to be Hall of Fame, generational good. Gronk, Kelce, Tony Gonzalez. It is very difficult to be the guy. Right now, obviously, Kincaid had a better rookie year, but he's Kyle Pitts. It's like all this hope. Yeah, Kincaid's going to be the guy, and nothing has really come of it.
If you're going to be a number one guy for any team, you are a difference maker.
Correct.
There is schemes. There's all those things. There's plays. You beat the guy. Like we said, sometimes you got to beat the other player.
Yeah.
And Kincaid has not done that. And I do know, obviously, you get attention. That's the way it happens. But the great players, or the number one players, not every number one is a generational player or a great player. But boy, if you want to be considered that, which is tough to do, as Dan said, at tight end, you got to be better. You know, you see Jamar Chase, he just
is better.
Beats the defender.
Justin Jefferson. It doesn't matter if he's covered.
Right.
You still throw him the football.
And so when you look at a tight end to be that guy, that's where almost everything has to be going really well. And even then, what we saw in the first few games, everything was spread out amongst the team. They ran the ball well. Defense played well. Then it wasn't as noticeable. When you've gotten down in games, somebody needs to step up. And the closest thing we had to that in the passing game was been certainly Shakir.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And was Coleman in the last game.
Yeah.
Who made a freaking play. Caught the ball and
4th
said,
and 5.
I'm gone. And that was huge. That's what you need in players. Yes, Dalton Kincaid has a touchdown. That was a nice play in the win, but he has not been a difference maker, and that's what was expected of him.
A couple of comments. Gerald McClinton saying, credit to Dan. Credit to Dan. And then also TR saying, for what Dawson is being paid, he's a ghost. That you could put. Honestly, when I thought of biggest disappointment, I thought of MVS, but okay. I thought of Kincaid. I thought of Knox, and I thought of Curtis Samuel. That's a lot of players on the offense.
And I will say, a lot of that's on Bean.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's the one.
You gave the extension to Knox
Mm-hmm.
and then traded up to draft a tight end. And this 2 tight end, this 12 personnel hasn't really flourished, at least this year, into anything. Defenses have adjusted. Defenses are now playing more man coverage that everybody thought, well, Josh just sees zone. He's got to get better at reading the zone because he's so good at beating man. He was good at beating man because he had guys that could win one-on-one. And say what you want about Stephon Diggs, but I remember when Diggs talked about when Kincaid got rolling, it opened things up for Diggs. And when Diggs was good, Kincaid was rolling because defenses had to give attention to more than one guy. We saw guys in Baltimore, unbelievable. Kyle Hamilton is good enough to take out Dalton Kincaid. Kyle Hamilton is that good that he can take away your guy. Derek Stingley lined up a couple of times against Dalton Kincaid. That is how little the Houston Texans respect the rest of the Bills' wide receivers to go, we'll put our best cover guy on your tight end. And Dalton's not that good right now to beat a top tier corner.
Yeah. So
that's problems.
I don't know if you saw Steve Smith, former receiver, came out. He was talking about the Bills, and he said, Coleman's in the wrong spot. He needs to be in the slot more against. Now, Kyle Hamilton is a notch above a regular
All
safety, but mostly against linebackers, players that aren't as fast, linebackers and whatever, and he's not an X. I think he's playing in the outside a lot because they don't have anybody else.
Exactly. So if you put Coleman inside, somebody else has to go outside.
Yeah.
And you don't, who else do you want out there? Do you want Curtis Samuel outside? Do you want Shakir outside? Like this is what we go back to in the preseason, in training camp. And we said, I don't know how this is all going to work because everybody kind of does the same thing.
Yeah.
This is everybody ate for 3 weeks and everything was great. And now there's problems.
Well,
and what is your answer? The solution to the problem?
Well, we talked about like everybody eating. Is that sustainable? That was one of the things I remember asking because I was like, things are going great right now, but adversity always creeps up in the NFL. And to see really what has happened and the lack of answers and the lack of separation, all these things. Look, there's a reason why number one receivers are paid the way they are because they are that important. And I feel like we've seen this week and even last week of how much a game-changing player can do exactly that. And unfortunately, the Bills just do not have the roster built around players that are exceptional at what they do. And we said this going into the season. You are projecting every guy to have their best year. You are projecting players to play way more and way better than they have in the past. And so far, it's really been Khalil Shakir that has lived up to that.
Yeah. I said at the beginning of the year that there isn't every player, as you're saying, because they've either not been asked to play that role for many reasons or just hadn't played in the league like Keon Coleman. So when you looked at their numbers, you thought, okay, like if they all do just what they've done, it looks like it looks right now.
And I like Brandon Beane. He said on your patio.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had the Dan is wrong mug.
Yep.
Yes. He made a conscious effort to call it a transition year and to move on. But while there's a ton of heat on Sean McDermott, and I understand the late game scenario, all of that, and there's heat on Joe Brady and all these things, when after 3 weeks it stinks because we're going to lose our OC, and now it's Brady doesn't know what he's doing. They don't construct the roster. Sometimes so many people are on social media yelling at me that McDermott's not doing this and all the things. He doesn't draft the players. He doesn't sign players. Like, this is a Brandon Beane constructed roster. And there are flaws with this roster that are being exposed.
Two main places there are flaws: defensive line and wide receiver.
They've struggled with defensive line for a long time.
The difference between the two is they have invested huge resources in the defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
First round picks,
second round picks
that flamed out, right? And free agents like Von Miller. When you add all this up, the D-line is farther away from being what you need maybe than it's been since 2018. If you start looking at what they have, right? Because you would hope that there have been moments, but now you've got Von suspended towards the end of his career. Ed is a very good player. And Rousseau that you're hoping for. Like, you're not, and Epinesa, they're okay. Wide receiver, they have not invested. Only one first round pick, and it was one pick. One first round pick is when they traded for Diggs. But now Diggs is gone.
Yeah, Coleman's a second. Gabe was a third.
We came out of the draft being like, I can't believe they only drafted one receiver.
Yeah. Where's our guy? Is he still back there? See if the Bears want to trade him. He hasn't done
Roman
that much with the
Dunze.
Bears.
I want to get to Shane Russell. $10 tip. Thank you, Shane.
Thanks, Shane.
Love you all. Haven't watched the last game tape, but it does seem like they aren't using motion as much as they did in the first 3 games.
All right, Dan.
Maybe I'm just blinded by mediocrity and missing it. It's a great comment. I will say sometimes on the road with it being louder, that can come on.
I'll buy it.
I agree. I think it needs to be employed more, but at the same point, I think
that's an excuse.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's just, I think Brady, we did the podcast and I said, Joe Brady has been so good at keeping things simple and has been doing what he does well and not being dictated by other things. That when they ran the ball well, it was, we're going to run it. There's nothing you can do about it. And he's been implemented all this pre-snap and things like that. When I sat up next to Mike, when he wasn't talking, I was trying to at the press box of the Jags game, I was trying. That was good, right?
That was funny.
Oh, it was hilarious. By the way, Dan was wrong. Gabe was a fourth. That's been mentioned several times.
Oh, I thought you were laughing at Chevy saying Cody Ford over DK Metcalf.
Yeah.
I'll never forgive him.
By the way, Dan is always trying to pump up Gabe Davis.
Yeah, I made him a third round pick. How about that? I remember I was trying to mark down every snap that they did pre-snap motion. And it got to the point where I was like, it would be easier if I tracked the plays that they didn't have pre-snap motion because there was so much of it. And I think they did like 80% in that game. And the Jags had no answer. And they've gotten away from that the last few weeks. I know that the Shakir injury and all these things can be a reason. But if guys can't separate and Keon's getting jammed at the line, and that's not his strength yet, and maybe he will develop and get releases in his bag of tricks as he develops into a wide receiver. But you can free him up. It doesn't have to be a motion into the slot. A soft motion at the line of scrimmage just before the snap moving laterally allows corners not to get their hands right on him. Give these guys, it's what Cole Beasley did so well. It was soft, short motion, and then he won right at the line of scrimmage. I'm not asking for Keon to be Cole Beasley, but I'm asking use the formula that you have seen work in the past to help your guys now.
Yeah, because he's a stationary starter.
Yeah.
Right? He's standing there ready. And you did see that's the one time when they were in Miami, he got really locked down
by Jalen Ramsey.
And so give him some help in that way. And, you know, sometimes when you look at what they've put out there on the field, none of them are one-on-one individual winners.
Nope.
And the hope was that's why I think everybody's as disappointed in Kincaid. He's not a bad football player. It's just, come on, you got in that first year, you got a lot of targets. This is the year to step up. And I think, look, this offense will look better whenever Shakir is back. That will help a lot. But as much as I like Shakir, it's not Justin Jefferson coming back on the team. Like, he's a good player. The problem is there's just not enough. And then it leads to the question is, do they just do something? Do they make a move?
Well, and that's the point, I think, where they're at, where they're kind of looking at, like, what are they going to do? Because, look, we talked about Devontae Adams. I think it was last week. I don't expect that to be the case. But do you expect that the Bills do something? Do you think Brandon Beane does something? Because also Josh is getting the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah.
Because no one's getting open. And that's a lot of time that your offensive line has to block. And then Josh is scrambling and running around. Look, I get it. Josh is a big bodied dude. He's taken a lot of hits in his career, but it's like, if you can minimize that and have players that can win and have a guy that, like, other teams' defenses are like, oh God, we need to know where this guy is at all times.
For a while it was, Josh, don't run because you'll get hurt. Josh is getting killed in the pocket.
Yeah.
And nobody's winning for him. And he's having to do those plays where there aren't the freebies. There are no layups.
There's no layups.
And he's having to run to the sideline and try and make a superhero throw again.
There are times he could just make the quick throw.
Absolutely.
And usually what that's
But are we
been
allowed
is,
to criticize Josh Allen?
Yes, go right ahead. By the way, Sandra King says, everybody eats, but who's setting the table?
It's supposed to be Josh.
Well, Josh and
Joe.
Brady.
Yeah.
No, and Bean.
Yes.
You
Who's
think
buying
that-
the groceries? Right?
They're-
Is what they
That's
say.
Bean, yeah.
They're currently eating off paper plates.
Yeah.
Okay, whoa. I love eating off paper plates. I don't have to worry about dishes. I'm
Wow.
also not the general manager of an NFL team, so
Yes, Scott, Jenna did say that.
yes, I did swear.
Yeah.
Which, if you watch our channel, you know that we do
Like
frequently.
a sailor.
Okay, you want to talk about the Jets? Because they're going through it right now.
Yeah. Isn't it something that we're complaining a lot, and rightfully so, about the issues the Bills are having? And they are. But the Jets, I mean, let's just say, what did they do? They came back from London. So they flew back.
That London game.
Yeah. They fly back from London. They send old Robert Salah out there to talk on Monday. Yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do that.
They trot him out. That's
And
what you say when
it's
someone's
such a
not
good-
doing well.
yes.
They trotted him
Trot
out
him out.
there.
And then Tuesday, the owner steps in. Goodbye. GM's not part of it. Rodgers, of course, knew nothing.
Nothing.
He's like, this is an old reference. A few of you will know. He's Sergeant Schultz. There was this old show, very old show called Hogan's Heroes. And he would say,
My dad's favorite show.
Know
Really?
nothing. I know nothing. That's Aaron Rodgers. He knew nothing about this. He just sat back and said, oh, I just saw a tweet that said they fired Robert Salah. That's a shame. Knew nothing about it.
Mm.
I saw a tweet that was they've hired a new head coach, and it was like Baron Bodgers, and it was Aaron Rodgers with a shaved head.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then he goes on McAfee and he's like, everyone has this narrative about me being involved. And, I feel for Robert Salah and all this stuff. And it's like, dude, don't act like.
Oh, that hug, that warm embrace really told you all you needed to know.
Yeah, exactly. That's.
So then the question is, what happens this week with them? Now they have a new play caller.
They have a new
head coach.
Yeah.
I think there are issues. If I was the Jets and
Sorry.
Aaron Rodgers would have come to me and said, I'm firing the coach. I need you to help me, Mike. I would say, run the freaking ball to Breece Hall against the Bills. Run the ball. And then it'll open things up for you because the Bills have struggled stopping the run in general. I would run it this week.
But if you run the ball, he can't throw the ball to his friends, like Alan Lazard.
That's his one friend.
I was going to say, he has
Well,
one friend.
he's working to get his other friend.
Yes.
No family, one friend. Man of War. Thank you for the tip. Real quick, has Dan gotten over the Braves loss?
No.
Okay.
Oh, actually, yeah. I feel better. I feel free.
I
Okay.
told him the same
Yeah.
thing with the Phillies.
Yeah.
I feel free. It was a horrible team to watch. And I would say, Dan's going to get mad when I say this. Credit to the Mets.
Nope.
They were the better team. They certainly were better.
Yeah.
Look at that.
All right, let's go back to the Bills or actually the Jets. So Robert Salah, what?
No, I don't think we were talking about it on our show, the Buffalo Plus that we do on TV. I don't think anything changes with play calling or anything. I don't think scheme changes. Aaron Rodgers runs his system. It is Aaron Rodgers, West Coast, his system.
Well, right now, his system sucks.
Because he sucks.
I mean, it was bad. It was terrible against Denver. And if you watch that game against Minnesota, it was horrible.
Do you know who Todd Downing was before today? Or
Titans. OC.
Yeah, he was right. He was there.
I thought he was the Raiders too.
I just know 21 and 22, I believe he was with the Titans, and they struggled. I only know that because Bussin' with the Boys, Taylor Lewan was talking about how when he found the news out on live on the pod, and he said that he thought he knew Todd Downing knew that he was going to be fired because Taylor Lewan joked that wherever Todd Downing, this is a great story, guys. Wherever Todd Downing was going next, like Taylor would join him on the next team. And he goes, oh, so for a high school football team? Like he kind of had the inclination that his time was coming to an end there.
That's where I just don't think that Todd Downing goes into this meeting and it's like, Aaron, hey,
that's true.
Hey, Aaron, listen to me. You don't know what you're talking. I'll tell you what's going wrong with the offense. I'll figure this out. And I think Aaron just goes, like, you can talk into my headset all you want. I'm just going to do whatever the hell I want because I'm Aaron Rodgers and I'm going to call my own plays.
Remember when that meant something?
RELAX.
Yeah.
Now, again, if the Bills don't get any pressure on Rodgers and he sits back in the pocket and throws back shoulder perfect throws to Lazard and Garrett Wilson, the Bills are in for a long night. When he throws that ball, it is unguardable and they can lose this game if they don't get any pressure. But the Vikings were able to get pressure to him, knock him around. He's a 40-something-year-old quarterback coming off a torn Achilles. He's a statue.
Yeah.
But he can still make throws. And,
that is the throw he really makes.
But when people think, like interim head coach, like the interim head coach comes, they rally the team, they win the next week. I was just looking up for BetWise. Over the last 28 coaches that have been fired, They're 15-18 their following week.
And the vast majority of those teams, now, let's be honest, most of the time when they're firing a coach during the season, it's late in the year, interim coach comes in with 2 games left. I mean, that's more of the norm. Very rarely does that team ever make the playoffs.
Correct.
Any
The
of these
Raiders
teams.
was the only one.
Yeah, that Raiders team made the playoffs.
Well, the end of your point was interesting of why coaches get fired.
Because they're on bad teams and they're bad rosters, teams that are playing poorly. Like, I think it's easier to fire up a team in week 17 to say you're playing for your job. I don't know what a boost they get in week 6, firing their coach to say, oh, hey guys, we should start playing better now. Like, Salah got fired. We should start working harder.
I think there are times when pulling the plug on a coach who is universally disliked by the team, it just is felt that way.
Losing the locker room.
The Vikings defensive coordinator, I'm drawing a blank.
Brian
Flores. I think he had a bad vibe in Miami.
Bad vibe guy.
The guy is a very good defensive coach. It was not working. That type of coach, and I'm only bringing him up because he was very tough on the players, tough on Tua, all those things. I do think there's times when you pull the plug on a coach that the whole place can go. Sauce Gardner's out there saying, I love this guy. He made my career for me. You know, I'm playing for him. I don't think everybody in that roster was sitting there going, we got to get rid of Robert Salah. You know what I'm saying is I think you can get a boost if everybody's just worn down by the head coach. And that's not the case here.
I think they're worn down by Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I agree with you.
What I was going to say is I'm very curious the dynamic in that locker room right now, because you have Aaron Rodgers, who's obviously very established, future Hall of Famer. He has his guys in that room. And then you also have the players that are not with Rodgers from before. So what does that feel like? What does that look like? What does that do to a team's camaraderie when they're the have and the have-nots?
I would tell you this from talking to a lot of players who've been in this league for a long time. They cut through bullshit in a locker room. Those players know whatever went on. It's not, no matter what is said on the Pat McAfee show, if that's the feeling, and I'm not saying it is because we don't really know, not in the building, but if they feel that and it's more of this Green Bay guy, his guys, not just Green Bay, his guys. He wants his guys, always his guys. If that's the feeling, I don't think they're following him where they need to go. And then I think it can be more of a negative than a positive.
No.
But I think you're right, worn out by the quarterback more than the head coach.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't think he's a great head coach either. It's not like I think he's done something great, but man, talk about be put in a spot. Zach Wilson and this guy.
Okay, well, that brings the next point to me. Well, do you have one more point, Dan?
No, I'm good.
I was going to say, for all the drama going on with the New York Jets, they have been a thorn in the Bills' side.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
the Bills have lost to Zach Wilson, 3 times?
How many career wins does Zach Wilson have?
Most of them against Buffalo, I'd have to
3
imagine.
against the Bills.
Does he have 10?
Give me a check.
But regardless, this has been a team that the Bills have struggled to play. You said it on our show of how Josh Allen calls MetLife the house of horrors for him because of how this team has played.
There have been a lot of press conferences. I feel like we've been at MetLife where Josh is like, I've played like shit.
How bad was he last year after that game?
Atrocious.
Oh my God.
And he was really bad in that game and got picked off 3 times.
He has 12 wins.
So
21 losses.
25% of his wins are against the Bills.
Against
Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think one of the games Josh came out, it was the end of the regular season. But yes, 12 wins.
Regardless, they have struggled against the Jets.
By the way, it's a little breaking news in the NFL involving the Jets. Hassan Reddick is parting ways with his agency, CAA.
Oh, interesting. That's who represents Josh.
He's signing. Let me tell you something. They're not stupid, people who run that. I don't know what Reddick's trying to do. He's losing a ton of money.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean he's signing anytime soon or if he's not playing this week. But that's a real weird one that's been going on.
Well, I think something that's lost in Monday's game is that this is for the top spot in the AFC East.
Yeah.
Like these are 2 teams that are not looking great right now. They have been struggling. Obviously the Jets make all these changes, but there is a lot on the line on Monday night and the implications of that, because it's early on, but we know the easiest way to the playoffs, win the division.
Yeah.
I find it funny when people talk about, it was, I can't remember who it was. Oh, it's Coward. And he talks about coaches late in games, and he compared Andy Reid to being a life jacket. You're drowning in the ocean, and he goes, Sean McDermott is a kettlebell. That was like his analogy, because Coward loves his analogies. And people always say, like, well, what has Sean McDermott done? What has he won? 4 division titles, like 4 straight division. Like, I don't think that's nothing. So when you look at this game, and he also hasn't lost 3 games in a row since 2018.
And Josh was out with an elbow injury.
And Derek Anderson was playing football games at that time. So he has, and Dawson Knox talks about it. You talk about a locker room, you talk about when you make moves for coaches, and it was something we talked about last year a lot. You make a move for a coach when they've lost the locker room. Dawson Knox said it like, hey, we never get too high. And they talked a lot this week about the process.
Yeah.
They really did. Yeah.
It was, hey, the process this, we had a leadership meeting, Trail Bernard said, and we got to stick to the process and know what we do and have faith in who we are. And we heard Joe Brady talk about that after the game. We have belief. We believe in the quarterback. We believe in the guys in this room. And I think that Sean McDermott's leadership, which is a huge part about being a head coach, of being even keel, has allowed them to, Mike, you had the stat of the tweet.
Yeah.
That after they've lost 2 games in a row in the last 4 years.
4 years.
And they've always.
And post that 2-game losing streak, they have won 21 of 23 games over those 4 years.
Wow.
Their only 2 losses were Hail Murray and the overtime game to the Eagles. That's wild.
That is wild.
First of all, to only lose 2 in a row, they're a good team. Sean McDermott's career record is 81-49. Because I had somebody tweet at me this week, and they were like, why don't the Bills do something, drastic like the Jets just did? I'm like, first of all, if you're following anything the Jets are doing, that's what the old Bills used to do.
Yeah.
And secondly, Sean's 81-49. So if you're replacing Sean, you better be finding somebody you think is better, because there's a long way to go down from what Sean McDermott has put up.
I think that all the time. For the people that want to fire McDermott, like, okay, then who? Then who? Then who do you trust
I had
to
somebody
do that?
telling me about how much better of a coach Kyle Shanahan was because McDermott is so bad late in games.
Daisy never watched Kyle Shanahan coach?
I think, honestly, though, some people, they watch the Bills so intently, which I understand, but then you don't see the mishaps and miscues of other teams because you're kind of watching from 10,000 feet as opposed to being locked in on every Bills game.
Since Kyle Shanahan has become a head coach, nobody has blown more double-digit fourth-quarter leads than Kyle Shanahan. And if you want an offensive coach, that's fine. I understand you saying, like, I don't like having a defensive head coach. He's too conservative. And then he gets aggressive, and you don't like how aggressive he gets. Like, it is always this, the grass is greener on the other side somewhere else, and that's not always the case. But we've had these discussions. We've talked to, when we're out in the road and we're hanging out with Beauvais and those guys, we're like, name 5 coaches that you would rather have in the NFL. Like,
that are available,
or that you are, I don't put Ben Johnson in that. I don't put Bobby Slovak in that because they're unknown.
Yeah. Well, they are unknown. So you have no idea what kind of head coach they're going to be. Might be phenomenal, right? They may be the next McVay. They may be the next Arthur Smith. Well, like, you just don't know.
Yeah. And McVay is, he's a gem, but he's also, like, just for one McVay, there's probably 15
no question.
Other guys that you're like, dang, I can't believe they wasted Josh by doing this.
Now, that's why, from what we started talking about, this roster needs to be better. It's taken a lot of coaching to keep this together right now, in whatever form.
Well,
you're going to have to coach guys up because, we've seen it.
And this brings up Man of War. Thank you for the tip. He says, do you guys think Bean is actively looking for a wide receiver 1, or is he not concerned yet?
I think he's actively looking for potential wide receivers. You're not really finding wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
Nope.
Unless you're like, I don't even know who would be.
Would you consider Amari Cooper a 1?
No, a former 1.
Yeah.
Or a 2. He's more of always been like a 1A kind of player. Puts up numbers all the time. Like, he's a good football player.
Yeah.
Mike Evans isn't getting traded.
Nope.
You know what I mean? Like, there's players like that. I don't think the Dolphins are getting ready to send, Jalen Waddle somewhere.
To get a number 1 wide receiver, you have to draft them, or you have to pay a premium to trade for them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Or you deal with the Tennessee Titans, who were stupid when the Eagles got A.J. Brown. That was, when you look back at that deal, was like a number 1 pick. It was made on
That
draft
felt
day.
like a spit in the face to Vrabel.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
we're going
that's
to
fair.
take away.
Yeah.
Screw you.
Yeah.
Like,
And AJ Brown at the time was 24 years old.
It's insane.
With that team. That is a rarity. That's when you got to be ready to pounce on a stupid team like the Titans were.
Do we want to do picks real quick?
Yeah.
We're getting up on 45 minutes.
Oh, okay. You want to start?
Sure. Wait, let's do standings.
Dan likes to say this. I am in last place. I am 1 game behind Dan and Jenna. I admit it. When I am wrong, I admit it. I was wrong. I had too much faith in this Buffalo Bills team. I was wrong.
Yeah, that's fine. How does that feel?
Shitty.
3-2, 4-1, 4-1. Yeah, so I think this game's going to be ugly.
UGLY.
I don't really, honestly, I think this game could go, either team could win. I think it's a close game either way. I'm just going on Sean McDermott doesn't lose 3 games in a row. I think that Joe Brady gets back to doing things simpler. I think he gets back to more preset motion. I think they get back to running the ball, whether James Cook is back there or not. That helps the offensive line. That's when they were playing the best, is when they were running and they were moving guys downhill. That opens up play action, things like that. They're going to have to get creative this week. I think it is going to be, at times, a field position game. Ugly game. I'll give you an ugly score. 22-19. I think there's a safety. I think there's missed kicks in this game. And if they win by 22-19, I think Tyler Bass hits a game winner.
Wow.
What would your confidence level be in Bass as he ran out to go kick that?
Less than 50%.
Less than 50%.
Like if he hits it, I would be surprised.
Wow.
I'd have my camera focused on him for the sad cutaway shot.
Yeah.
And then if it goes in, I'd be like, whoa.
You'd be like, oh, snap.
He hit a big one last year, week 1.
He did.
They drove down the field after being inept on offense for most of the game. They drove down the field. Bass kicked the game to put it to overtime.
Yeah.
Yep.
He made the field goal late against the Texans.
Yep.
So maybe he's building some confidence. The Bills would love to see that. Okay. In terms of my pick, I also have the Bills winning this game. I have the score being 24-21. I do also think that this will be an ugly game, but I think one of the things about losing is that it makes you go back to the basics, and the basics of where the Bills have done well. Now, Khalil Shakir being out, hopefully he'll be back, but if he's not, I am definitely concerned. As for James Cook, I feel the same way, but I think Taron Johnson does play, and I think, like I said earlier, he makes everyone out on the field be better. Terrell Bernard being back as well is also huge for this defense. I have it being a close game. I have it being an ugly one, but I think at the end of the day, well, the Jets might come out and be the more desperate team to start. I just think there's huge issues with that roster, with the development of their offense. And honestly, I think the Bills can beat this Jets team. And frankly, on a personal note, I want to see Aaron Rodgers lose. So,
wow. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there's also the London factor in this game.
Yep.
I think it takes something out of teams. We saw it last year. Bills came back and played a horrendous game against the Giants and got very lucky to win. The Jets are coming back from that. And then all the stuff that's going on in that building. I don't think any of it is a real positive for the Jets. And I think the Bills, honestly, I do think there was a positive about the way they played in the second half last week.
Yeah.
When it doesn't result in a win, all anybody's focused on is McDermott's decisions and what they did at the end and all those things. They made a lot of plays in that second half.
The
Bernard,
defense,
Dorian Williams, Smoot knocked the ball loose. They played tough. They forced some pressure at the end, and they scored in the play that Keon made. Those things at least give me a little more hope. I don't love them against the Jets. It's never a good matchup, but the games are always like this. I think the Bills find a way. I need to hang with you too. I've got it 20-17 Bills.
Yeah. Chris S saying we have to start faster on both sides of the ball.
Oh, no doubt.
It's a fair point.
the defense has a tendency under McDermott over the last few years of giving up opening drive touchdowns and making adjustments. A lot of times it's like the team marches down the field, they give up a touchdown. It happened in Arizona, happened in other games. And again, the Bills defense really kind of buckles down as they make those in-game adjustments late. It's been something that Sean McDermott has been very successful at.
Yeah. You're right, Mike, though. I do think that jet lag.
London factor.
The London factor is
I wish I would have
real.
brought up that point. That's a very good point.
Yeah.
So it's
Credit to you.
Credit to you.
Jets lag.
I mean, honestly, I feel like you've been workshopping that one.
I just threw it out there.
But that's fine. That's not bad. All right, do we want to do credit to me?
Go ahead.
You can start.
You start.
Credit to my fiance.
Yeah.
Again, you got it for
Yes.
paying for Amazon and now this.
So, little travel story. Mike and I traveled to Houston this past weekend, and on Friday, I drove out to Buffalo to visit my cousin. So that was fun and nice. And when I came back, I didn't realize I didn't have that much gas in my tank, but I didn't really think about it. And we left for our flight very, very early on Saturday morning. So I scooped Mike at about 4:30 in the morning, and I looked down at my car and I'm like, ooh, I only have 1 bar of gas and like 27 miles left in my tank, which is not bad, but also we have to drive a bit. I have to drop off Mike on the way home, all this stuff. So I was panicked that I was going to run out of gas on the way home because our flight didn't arrive in Rochester until almost midnight on Monday. So my fiance, round of applause for him.
Shout out Zach.
Drove out to the airport with like what you fill up your lawnmower with, and was putting gas in my car. To which security stopped him. We're like, "Sir, what are you doing?"
By the way, how much of the gas actually made it in the tank?
I have a picture. There was a lot.
It was 50-50.
There was a lot on the ground, but yes. So he filled up the gas tank, and they actually went back because he was worried it was not enough gas. So shout out Zach.
Way to go, Zach.
Credit to him. I love you, honey.
All right. I'm going to continue on the travel and say credit to me because I stopped Jenna from beating up somebody at the airport. Very quick story. Jenna grabs the car. I'm getting the bags. There was an issue with the bags where they were going. I had 2 of them. I come walking outside, and this big doofus is yelling at Jenna because she didn't move the car up quickly enough.
Yeah.
And then what did he do? Knocked on the window?
He banged on the window.
And told
which
you to
I
move.
don't do that.
Don't do that. First of all, that's aggressive.
Yeah. And my thing is, if you ask me kindly, I will, of course,
Right.
no problem.
So give me the camera. So he said to Jenna, move forward. And she said, okay. And she moved 1 foot.
Nope. I moved 1 inch. I said, oh, you want me to move forward? And I moved up 1 inch. And that is not normally like me, but I was at my wit's end.
And then before this happened, I opened the back of her car and she yells, what in the bleep are you doing? She thought it was the guy.
I thought it was the guy.
That's the best part of the story.
I thought it was the guy.
But I ended up, having to break it up. I thought Jenna was gonna throw hands here.
Well, I don't normally act like that, but
I know.
I was just shocked at how rude someone was.
Guy was rude.
He was so
Sorry.
rude.
If you watch, first of all, you'd know her.
Well,
Secondly,
he stared at my face and was like, okay,
did
sir.
he really?
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
That's
I'll move up.
1 inch.
Honestly, I definitely learned something like that from you.
That's right.
Like I was feeling
told my
snarky.
wife the story and she said, that's something you would do.
Yeah.
I go, yeah.
Credit to you.
Yeah, credit to my wife.
My wife.
Just big picture. We have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old at home. It's on Jenna. now it's on me. Not my wife. Not my wife. My wife, Renee. Again, we have a 4-year-old who is 2 girls and a 14-month-old, and she's also 7 months pregnant.
Wow.
And our schedules are crazy.
You need to work more.
Yeah. So shout out to her at home. And, she does more of the bedtimes during this time with working and traveling and all of those things. So I'll spend this one. My credit is to Renee.
That's sweet.
Oh, very nice.
Is she watching?
Nope. Because she's
You're
going
gonna have to clip this and send it to her.
Because she's going to be like, why? I don't get why you were so late. It's like, because we had to credit to me and I had to give you credit. So it won't be worth anything.
No.
But her friends listen. And her friends will be like, they talked about you on the podcast. And she'll be like, what did they say? And then it'll be something nice.
Yeah. And then
but she doesn't listen.
That's fair.
I did make her like, comment,
she listens to you enough.
Yeah. I did make her like, comment, and subscribe.
That's fair.
Nice.
As you should too.
Yeah. Everyone. All right. We are all going Bills for this. Mm-hmm. You guys will be down in New York or in New Jersey.
Yes, in Jersey. So our plan is Monday night, 6:30 to 7. All 3 of us will be on. Dan and I will be down in the field. Jenna will be in studio. we can do a little Q&A live.
Sorry,
Buffalo
I didn't
Plus
mean to
Live.
laugh. Walter S. says, credit to Dan for giving credit to his wife. Dan is playing chess. That was good.
Been
That's
married
good.
for a while. I figured this game
How
out.
many years has it been?
17, so we're coming up on our 7-year anniversary.
Wow.
That's wild. Okay. All right. Bullseye says, credit to me. I watched the whole pod. Well, Bullseye, we appreciate it.
Bullseye's
Thank you
OG.
so much.
Yeah,
he's OG. He's been around for a while.
Yeah, agreed. All right, cool. We'll have more on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel, like Mike talked about, on Monday, 6:30 to 7, to get you ready for the Bills at Jets. For Mike Catalana and Dan Fates, I'm Jenna Cottrell. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share. We always appreciate it. That'll do it for us here on the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. We'll see you next time, guys.